Welcome to Social Sessions. In this episode, we're joined by Lisa Purdie, the former manager of HMP Addiewell, one of Scotland's well-known private prisons. Lisa brings a wealth of experience and a unique perspective on what it's like to work within a prison environment from a managerial standpoint. We'll dive deep into the impacts of managing a prison, exploring the complexities and challenges faced daily, from understanding the operational dynamics to evaluating whether the current prison system in Scotland is truly effective. We'll tackle pressing questions on reform and innovation. So, welcome to Social Sessions. Today we are joined with Lisa Purdie, who was the Diversity and Inclusive Manager, or Advisor. So, what I'll do, Lisa, right, I'm just going to take you back to your own kind of upbringing, how you were brought. So, where was it you were brought up? Was it Livingston?
Born in Livingston, but then when I was 5, we moved to South Africa. My dad's job took us abroad.
So what was it like moving at that age to kind of a brand new country? Was it?
It was daunting, but gave me a better perspective of life and made me the person that I am, I'd probably say.
Do you think, looking at going to somewhere like South Africa, because obviously that'd have been kind of part when it was like the apartheid and all that, is that right? Mm-hmm. What was that like then, growing up in that kind of environment?
I remember hearing a conversation with my mum and dad. My dad was obviously a welder, and he says, look, if anything kicks off, just get Lisa and get to the airport and just leave everything behind. Aye. And just go straight to the airport. And I was young and I was like, oh my God, I didn't want this to happen.
Of course.
And at the time, obviously, many moons ago, there wasn't any mobile phones or that. Aye. So if we wanted to phone like my grandparents, my gran and papa, we had to go to like the special post office thing to phone them. Like I said, old and many moons ago. So
totally different environment.
Totally,
and how long were you there, Lisa?
I was there for about 2.5, 3 years, and then we went to Venezuela, South America, because my dad's job took us about.
Right.
And that was a bit more daunting because I had to learn Spanish, learn a new language. And
definitely. So what did your dad do? What was it? He
was a welder.
A welder?
Yeah.
But it just kind of obviously different. So Venezuela, did you go to school and stuff in Venezuela?
Yeah.
And what was that like? Because obviously...
Your class is going to a private school because obviously I have to do that. So yeah, it was great. My Spanish, I had to learn Spanish. I had to go to a private tutor to learn Spanish. And there was another family that were there at the time and she didn't pick Spanish up as quickly as me.
Aye.
Yeah.
Because obviously, it's something that I'm really interested in is the kind of South American politics, and I'm a big fan of Hugo Chavez, and I know a lot of people weren't a fan of Hugo Chavez. And did you see a lot of poverty and stuff when you were in Venezuela? Oh God, yeah.
There was no in between in Venezuela. You were either rich or poor.
Aye.
And you used to go to the beach on a Sunday because that was obviously my dad's day off and stuff like that. And there was like the shanty towns that had just threw up houses with metal. And that was their houses, and they were happy as.
Aye.
You know, when you think of poverty, yeah.
Well, you look at poverty kind of here in Glasgow, Scotland, there is obviously terrible poverty with food banks, whatever. But when you see the poverty in these kind of South America, and this is like, it's real kind of absolutely nothing into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched a programme, it was Oliver Stone, right enough, and he basically said that the shanty towns that you're talking about, weren't they actually covered as part of Venezuela? Didn't they have them in the maps?
No.
Just basically kidded on, they weren't there kind of thing.
They didn't. And then you looked up into the hills and there was like just even more shanty towns. Because they were out of view, they were worse.
But did you never get, obviously because you were at a private school, did you never see any of the kind of violence and all that was going on, or were you privy to that?
You did see things. Again, I was quite young and, but no.
I guess what age would you have been then, Lisa? Like
about 7 or 8.
7 or 8. So when did you come back? So was that Venezuela and then you came back to Scotland?
Well, my mum fell pregnant with my golden child brother. Once he was born, that was it. She was like, I want to go home to my mum and dad. So yeah, once my brother was born, we came back to Scotland and then my mum got settled. My dad still worked abroad, but not as long.
Aye.
He'd maybe go do a 2 or 3 month contract.
Aye. And that obviously kind of led you into living in Livingston, and what did you do? How were you what did you do there, Lisa? Was you school?
Well, I went to school and then I went to high school, and
just a normal life, just
as normal as can be in Livy. Yeah, so I went to Livingston, grew up in Livingston, and yeah,
No, because we had John Mancini on, he was for Livingston, and he actually says
No,
like
well.
the amount of people that come for Livingston that are famous, like Lewis Capaldi, you've got...
He's Whitburn.
Hannah Lane, I think she's for there as well, and different people. So it's quite a wee place. He was running through the names.
Susan Boyle,
Susan
Blackburn.
Boyle. Aye, there's loads in there.
Totally.
Something he said there was something in the water. That was his
Well, I
quote.
can't sing. I think I can, but I can't.
So obviously I knew you, Lisa, for working in Addiewell prison, and obviously we're going to go into that. And obviously, I always going really well with you. I thought you were approachable. You were always kind of compassionate. You had that empathetic side to you. But obviously, I do have gripes with Addiewell. I do have gripes with the prison system in a lot of ways.
Understandable.
So what kind of took you into that kind of field? What took you into the kind of prison system? Did you just fall into that, Lisa?
If you had told me years ago, because I always came from the hospitality industry, I worked on cruise ships for 10 years, and then I worked for British Airways, and then a friend of mine, she was working for a company selling private health insurance, and she goes, do you want to get into sales? And I thought, I'll give it a go, and went there. So I had to go to Addiewell, and I got on really well with the HR manager, Michael. I got on brilliant with him. And then one day he went, what's up? You seem really quiet. I said, I've just been told today I'm getting made redundant, because the area was saturated with business. And he's like, oh, we might have an opportunity for you here. If you had told me 20 years ago I'd work in prisons, I would have laughed my backside off. But it was one of the most rewarding jobs that I did.
It's one of the ones where it's obviously a lot of people have got this kind of preconceived idea of a prison system. They've got this thing that they watch television programmes and watch different things. And even I try and tell people that even when you watch a BBC programme or an STV programme, it's not the actual reality of what's going on. So obviously your role was the diversity and inclusion. When
I first got approached, I was there as staff and recognition. So I was getting nice things for the staff. We had just no long opened Addiewell. So what we were doing is I was going to like local businesses down at Livingston, MacArthur Glen in the centre and getting, if they show their badge, can they get a discount? So I was getting discounts for like Tony Macaroni and all these different places and all the food places. So we did that. And then I remember it was a 3-month contract, and I said to a friend that I had in there at the time, I goes, they're not saying anything about me extending this. She goes, just keep coming in, just keep coming in until they say something. And then one day Audrey called me into the boardroom and she said, we've got this job for you. Would you be interested? Basically, it was thrown at me. And I thought, yeah, and I remember saying to a manager in there who I thought so much of, he was great, Mickey. And I says, do you think I should do this? He goes, well, kid, you've got a black boyfriend. You've got trans friends and all this. He goes, you've got a life, you've led a life. He says, you're the best person for the job. And I was quite apprehensive about doing it, but once I was into doing it, I loved it. Because every day you were finding out something different, and a lot of it was self-taught. I went on courses and...
No, because obviously it was a different role, and obviously because as Addiewell opened, right? No, I don't agree with private. I don't agree with private prisons. I don't think they should be there, Lisa. Right?
I didn't know anything any different.
Of course not. Obviously, and you're walking in. It's just my personal views. I don't think like people should be able to own a prison and profit from a prison. But that's only my views. But obviously, that's a job role that's come up. That's been probably moving with the times. Do you know what I mean? So you've obviously been moving with the times, and they've needed somebody to move into that kind of role, and you've stepped in and you've done a really good job. And in a place that, I mean, obviously I talk about it quite a lot. It's a very toxic environment, both ways. And obviously that's kind of what we'll go into and we'll speak about. But what did you make it when you first went into Addiewell? Did you feel pressure? Did you feel scared? Were you feared?
I remember going up to the education department and being a female and blonde. You know, I remember going in all the glass windows. And you know, if somebody was new came in, it turned heads. But then if there was somebody that had been there forever, it eventually got like that. Oh, it's only Lisa. You know, and there was people banging on the glass, and I had been watching too many movies. I thought, oh my God, they're going to escape and do this. But after that, it was fine. I never got any pressure, any hassle, apart from one time, and that was a young, silly wee guy that came from Pullman and was trying to make a name for himself.
Aye, I know it's these things that happen. And so, what would you see when Addiewell first opened? We all know it was a kind of shit show, right? And it was like, obviously, and I'm going to put my kind of head on the chalkboard and go, look, it was a brand new prison. Nobody knew what they were doing, and give that the kind of way that it was. But there was a lot of times that I didn't feel safe, right?
Join the club.
I know, and I think that the whole thing was a learning curve for everybody, right? It was obviously opening up, and we were the first prisoners in it. There was a lot of stuff going on. There was like just mistakes being made all over the place, but Audrey Park obviously came in and she did do a good job of kind of ring fencing it. She ring fenced it quite quickly, and she managed to get control.
She was brilliant at her job.
She was, and as much as is whether you like Audrey personally or whatever, that's a whole different thing. Do you know what I mean? I got on all right with Audrey, but she's definitely was good at governing a prison. Do you know what I mean? And it was needed at the time because Addiewell was quite wild at the time.
Yeah.
But what did you make of, like, do you think there was enough help in there for the boys?
No, not to begin with. I mean, it all looked great on paper.
Aye.
And when I started getting involved with stuff, I was too nosy and then started getting involved more and more and more. And there was Audrey and Tony Simpson wanted to do this thing, whereas for progression, prisoners getting out, and it was me and another kind of officer, Jane. And what we were trying to do was like, so help the guys, once they step over that threshold, they're not on their own, and try to involve with more. So I tried to get food banks into the prison to talk to them, to say, look, when you get out, there's nothing to be ashamed of, where before years ago, you would never admit to going to a food bank,
Aye.
And talk to them about stuff like that. So all this was set in stone. Myself and Jane, everybody, Tony Simpson, we were all going to these meetings and getting these things organised, working with the community, the outside community, and it was great on paper. Then all of a sudden, all these great ideas just stopped.
I think this is where my gripe is, and I don't know how, obviously I know that you're kind of pinged by what you can say, Lisa, and stuff like that, right? But when I see like the logo, transforming lives for the better and stuff like that, I've got to just say I don't see it. I see people going in, and I actually see people coming out worse at times, most of the time. A lot of good stuff going on now in the prisons. Aye, there's a lot of stuff that's starting
to... A lot of bad as well.
Aye, definitely. And I think, listen, we're talking about an environment that's very, very volatile. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about an environment that's security-led. We're talking about an environment that's very, very hard to manage. And I understand that. But I think when you, as you say, on paper, it's very easy to put transforming lives for the better. This is what we're actually doing here. This is what we're doing. But the reality of the situation is there's a lot of lost boys in there that need help.
Totally. Nobody's got a magic wand, and there are some people that want to be helped.
Definitely.
And then there's other people that are like, no thanks. And the people that you did try to help, I took it quite personally, because I want everybody to get on and have a great life, and treating everybody equally and fairly. And I remember sitting across from a guy, and he had said something about, I'm going to get a chickie when I go out. And I went, oh my God, you can't say that. He went, look, Lisa, growing up, he had been in the system for so long. He says, he knew he was a chinky. I knew he was. He says, and that's the way it was. I went, no, Gary, you can't speak like that. The world's changing out there. You've got, and just try to like guide guys in the right direction. And it wasn't always easy. No,
it's hard because obviously, as you're saying, like you're trying to get people that... I would say, like, in prison, the vibration level, I always talk about energy, right? And the energy levels and stuff. And I think the energy level in Addiewell, if you look at it at the kind of ground level, is very low. The vibration level is very low. Things are celebrated that probably shouldn't be, like drug taking, violence, anti-authority behaviour. These are celebrated on the wing. They're celebrated. So it's how do you get these guys to raise the awareness, to come to maybe somebody like you and go, Lisa, right, what do I do when I get out? And then how, it's all right you doing that, Lisa, right? And you doing your job to the best of your ability. But see if that person's not got that support network, then 9 times out of 10, they're going to fall back into the old way.
When I look at somebody like you, for example, I mean, I met your mum and your young sister, and they came in, and your girlfriend, mother of your children now. They came in, and I got on great with them, and they believed in you. And I could see you had a great support network when you were going to get out. And I remember saying that to you. You were like, no, I'll never get out. I said, you will. One day you'll get out and you'll talk about this and laugh about it. No, laugh about it in that sense.
I know what you mean.
I says, but you will, and you'll grow from it, and you'll become a better person. I know that sounds a bit hippy-dippy, airy-fairy, but if somebody had told me I would love that job as much as I did, I would have laughed.
Aye. No, I think people don't realise is most prisoners are in there just because it's either the way they were brought up, right, like childhood stuff, or some traumatic incident. A lot. There was a study done no long ago, and I don't know, you might be privy to this, Lisa, a wee bit more than me, but there was a study done no long ago that showed that nearly 80% of the prison population have been abused, either sexually or violently abused as a child. Yeah. And that this was I can't remember the kind of who published it, but I would go a step further and say that nearly everybody I spoke to had a traumatic story to tell. Yeah. So I mean, how do you deal with that on a daily basis when you're dealing with people that are hard to they've never experienced humanity. They've never experienced any being nice to them, so they're not used to it, Lisa. So how did you deal with that?
See, some of the things that totally shocked me was when guys had completed a course and they got a paper certificate that was laminated, and it was like you had given them a winning lottery ticket. I know. And that was so rewarding for me to see, because it was a learning prison, and I think it helped a lot of people, and a lot of people were disillusioned by it. The press had it in for Addiewell from day one, and they didn't help us at all, because you were getting guys that had came from a background of being abused and dragged up, and then they were coming in and we were showing them compassion and care, and they just took this, they couldn't believe it, what was happening.
I spoke about it in my book, and I spoke about it before as well, on like when we were the very first ones in Addiewell. So we were like, there was two buses, one for Shots, one for Glenorchy. And I remember, like, I was with some kind of hardened criminals, right? There was guys that had done a long time, and we were driving in on the Reliance bus. Aye, right, and it looked more like a uni or something, right? Like for the outside, right? Like compared to when we were coming for Shots and stuff. And when you drove in, I just remember getting off, and like they were offering you Mars bars and bottles of juice and all that. It
Never
was
done
mad.
That to me.
But it was weird, and I think that it was the right way. It's a good approach, right? Because I'm going to go on and talk about the special unit later on and how that kind of worked and stuff. But I think where I think Addiewell got it wrong, right, was they were trying to work with a compassionate and empathetic model, but with a punitive approach at the back of it. Yeah. Which basically clash, and I think they collide, and basically I don't know if it works that you're able to do that.
There was mistakes made from both points of view, from both sides, and I think they could have done better, but we could have done worse as well.
Aye.
We were trying to help guys, some who didn't want to be helped.
Aye.
But some did, and some were just trying to take the piss.
Ah, if you're going to get that in prison, you get guys that are
really?
going to...
Never noticed.
But I think it's obviously, like, looking at when I was in the halls, it was obviously like, I feel as if there was nothing like I could, like, I got on really well with you, and there was another couple of officers that got on really well with, and I wouldn't even have classed you as an officer, to be honest.
Oh, wasn't it?
That's what I mean, like, so I wouldn't even have classed you as an officer, so, but there was a few officers that did help, but there was a lot of kind of officers that didn't want to help and were there for that kind of, I wouldn't even say it was a power thing. I would just say they were there to do a job that they believed was the right thing that they were doing. They were there to kind of punish prisoners.
What we used to do was, when I had to deliver training to new starts, it was the kind of thing, you were doing. I had to do human rights training, which bored the pants off me, let alone the staff that had to sit and listen to it. So they were in this classroom environment for a long time, about 9 weeks, and I had to do a diversity and inclusion day. Some of it I had to learn, and what I did was I kept it real.
Aye.
For somebody like me, I dumbed it right down. So I remember getting clippings from the Sun and the News of the World, and it was a case, there was something in Tesco about a black doll being cheaper than a white doll.
Aye.
And I cut that out and used it as extreme racism.
Aye.
You know, and my family used to go mental because I used to use them as an example when I was delivering training. You know, and I remember you'd be sitting there explaining to the guys. And I remember some new officers are like, why should I be nice to them? They've committed a crime. Mm-hmm. And I used to always say, you could go out one night, out with your girlfriend, somebody's chatting her up, you've had a few drinks, you're not happy about it, one punch Romeo, before you know it, you're in here.
Aye.
And your family are sticking up for you and supporting you. I says it could happen to anybody, they're just one step away from it. And when you were delivering that training to officers, they all thought they were kind of cocky the walk and they knew better. And then it was funny how you'd see them maybe 6 or 7 months down the line being officers. Aye. And how they changed.
I think it'd have been a hard job for you in the way that you're trying to engage in this kind of empathetic, a bit of compassion, how to probably try and I mean, you're never going to heal that. You're never going to heal the prison system fully, right?
I tried.
You did, and listen, as I say, I've seen it like with Mick Stoney and Natalie and Kevin Cabry. There's a lot of good stuff going on, and there's people trying to heal the prison system, but it's a very, very, as I say, it's a very volatile environment.
I don't think COVID helped it either.
No, and the drug trends that have changed as well. The drug trends, we're now looking into spice and stuff.
That's
like
one
that.
of the main reasons I left Addiewell prison, because I started to get scared. Because spice came in at that time and you didn't know who was taking it, who was on it. You didn't know who staff to trust and everything.
I know. I think spice was the thing that, because obviously you go that way where guys were starting to actually lose who they were, like fully lose their personality, their psyche. And it was scary. It was scary for us. Like we were on the wing, and maybe guys, you were talking to them, and they were talking. They were talking absolute rubbish, like talking about stuff that wasn't happening.
Is that not a man thing?
Aye, that is just a man thing. Aye, but it's one of the ones where you were like, what are you talking about? And you were trying to help, but you were trying to be rational with somebody who's irrational. Do you know what I mean? At that time,
yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a kind of hard question, Lisa, right? How would you deal with that kind of drug problem? What would be your kind of way that you would go, this is what I would do? Because this is my view, what I would do is I would take away that punitive, that you're never going to punish trauma out of somebody. You're never going to punish addiction out of anybody. You need to start looking at it for a health kind of view.
Yeah. Well, you kind of got to remember that you didn't see what was going on behind the scenes. And I'm not a lover of all this, but there was stuff trying to be put in place, and it came down to the old-fashioned money.
Aye.
You know, they were going to have a wing purely for everybody that was addicted. They were going to have a wing for something else. And they had some amazing ideas, and I wanted to be part of that. You know, but...
And is it just purely down to money? Because this is where my gripe would come with Addiewell again, right? They're a private company. They're a huge company. Like Sodexo are massive.
I know.
So where do you draw the line and go, these people could have pumped a lot of money into this, right, and made a really good prison, but it looks as if they just scraped by and went with what they had just had today. Do you know what I mean?
Because it was human beings that were running it. No human's perfect. Let's face it. Come on.
No, well, I suppose it's marketing and businessmen at the top that are running it, so they don't get to see. They're just looking at how much
figures
money can
and
be
everything
made and all
like that. Yeah.
And obviously we know, I'm not going to name names, but there was people put in positions that were like business managers running a prison, and you were like, that they don't know the ins and outs of prison life. But obviously looking at the drugs problem is probably the main problem, I think, in prison.
Really?
Prisons probably ran on drugs in a way, if that makes sense.
Can you imagine if there had been no drugs in prison? Can you imagine what a fireball it would have been.
Well, look at if you go back to the 70s and 80s, and you look at the prisons. Old. No, but I know that, but I wasn't even born. But if you look at the 70s, 80s, and the riots and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. That probably wouldn't happen now because of the amount of people that are probably defused by being on prescriptions and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And there's people are scared to lose that. So there's a sense of on both sides. There's a sense of that person being responsible for the care and the mat standards, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But yet that person that's maybe got drug problems has actually got that need for the system. Do you know what I mean? They need that because obviously that's where they're getting their daily kind of their drugs for. Do you know what I mean? So do you think that there should be more?
You could see guys struggling to survive, especially first-time prisoners that came in. And I just used to think, that could be my brother. That could be my cousin. And I tried to help people. There was one guy in particular who was struggling to see his kids and everything like that. And I was trying to help him get that. You know, even though it wasn't officially my job, but I was saying, have you written to your social worker? Have you written to them? And just try to help him on the right path. I wasn't supposed to have a lot of prisoner contact. And sometimes I didn't listen to them. I just went, right, I'll go down. I wasn't supposed to go down the wing myself. I always made sure there was an officer there and, you know, if anything kicked off.
Aye.
I'm not the quietest of people.
No.
It's just
you always gave people a wee bit of respect, Lisa, and you got that bit of respect back. That was the way you were, and you were well respected in there. Thanks. But you've got to look, there is that, I've got to be true to myself when I say that there is people that are in the prison system that shouldn't be there. They're in there for the wrong reasons. And I mean that in the best possible way because I think they're conditioned. When we spoke earlier about that, I think if you've got a group of people who are conditioned to because obviously like if there's a fight or and the bell goes off and you know yourself, it's the same officers who are first there, the same officers that and it's I'm not saying they enjoy it, but they're there. They've been conditioned, and that's what they're doing.
Like a boxer, when that bell goes, you go to.
That's it, and then you've got the same cons. It's always the same cons that are kicking off.
You're not supposed to use that word.
No, what is it, residents? Residents. I mean, I actually think that's quite patronising that you would call us. Like I would rather be called a prisoner.
But you're not an us anymore or a prisoner. You're out.
I'm out now. But I think like as for prisoners, I think calling them residents.
A lot of prisoners didn't like it when it first happened, and some of the staff, when we got told, were like, "What?"
Aye. So how did that work then? Is that now rolled out across all the prisons, or is it just Addiewell?
Well, I've been out of Addiewell for more than 5 years now, and a lot of things have changed. But at the time, it was just kind of dropped in a board meeting. We're not going to be calling them prisoners anymore. We're going to be calling them residents. And I remember I was in the meeting and there was this manager. He had worked in Berlin and everything. And he was like, I'm not going to be calling them that. You know, they're not care homes. So yeah, there was a lot of conflicting, opinions.
I mean, I get it, right? There's probably a good intention behind it, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at the definition of a prisoner, it's probably somebody that's freedom's been took off them because they've broke their contract with society or something, right? That's probably
a good way of putting it.
So you're a prisoner. You know what I mean? A resident is somebody that probably wants to be in that residential place.
I don't think a lot of you wanted to be in there.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I mean, obviously, I'll take you back to kind of like 2000, like when it first opened, right? I was in. I came for shots, so it was a big eye opener for me. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed like the gym was good. There was.
Why do you always say the gym first?
The gym is good. The gym is good. The football was good. We had good games of football. There was, but I must admit, I absolutely hated it on the wing. It was always toxic. There was, and to be honest, Lisa, I'm going to be totally brutally honest with you. I struggled at times with it, and there was very few people ever came to me and went, Sean, are you all right?
I know that.
And I know that they're looking into the trauma-informed stuff. They're looking into trying to hang you, but there's like, take Norway, for example, we spoke about earlier. You need to do a degree in being a prison officer, right? Do you think that, obviously with Addiewell, do you think that, I know this is quite a hard question, but do you think 6 weeks training's enough?
No. It was 9 weeks, obviously.
Aye.
I don't think anything prepares you for working in a prison. And I used to say when I was delivering training, because I'd done the first week, and they were on news, straight out the pack, all excited. And I said, look to your left, look to your right. I says, these are your new pals that you've made this week. I says, see, one day you'll look at some of these people and they'll have landed you in the absolute shit. I says, they'll be caught sleeping with a prisoner. They'll be caught bringing drugs in. I says, it is going to happen. You might think they're great. I says, but everybody's tempted. We're all human.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've got, I mean, obviously that video that was out recently with the lassie down in England, the prison officer, you know these things going, right? And everybody, I think the public, everybody knows that it's, as we spoke about, you're human, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And some of these things happen. And I actually know a couple of people who have went on to have relationships with officers, and it's worked out, do you know what I mean? But again, I think I can't get over why that lassie was allowing them to. The only thing I can think of, right, is that she's got an OnlyFans account.
Well,
and
I've read that she has.
To try and promote that, and it's probably a good way to promote it, as long as she doesn't get to jail for it. Like, but
well, she put in a good performance with the clip I seen.
No, she definitely did. Definitely did. But it's just nuts that would actually. But that's down in England. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, Addiewell has had its fair share of kind of stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? That's
what used to get me about the media. They didn't want to show the good stuff that the prisoners did.
Aye.
You know, that was all negative. And when we were trying to get good stuff, they just didn't want to know.
No.
Like at Christmas, for example, a lot of the sex offenders wing.
Aye.
At Christmas, obviously prisoners are given a selection box and stuff. And they said, well, we don't want them. It's not like they're handed to them. So they said, we'd like to donate ours to like Children's Hospital in Glasgow or stuff like that. So at first people thought, obviously, these sex offenders had these selection boxes in their cell. It wasn't like that. They were brought in and they donated them to the children's thing. And we done it for Chaz. We raised a lot of money for Chaz. But that's never mentioned.
No.
We also done a lot. We had like a brilliant workshop. The guys made benches and everything like that. And wee seats for like the kids at school. So we got stuff getting donated to there, and we put plaques on them, made in HMP Addiewell, kindly donated to the community. Did the media cover that? No. They covered stupid stories like pigeons that were dead were stuffed with drugs and thrown over the wall.
Aye. No, and most of it was lies. Do you know what I mean? There were, like, there was some things they got right. Do you know what I mean? They were like, oh, it's one of these ones. But I've spoke to people about, and I think these red top papers are dying a slow death. Do you know what I mean? Because because of the lies, and they're just not willing to put successful stories in and stuff. But interesting. I'll take you back to the kind of sex offender bit, right? Because obviously there's a kind of people have got a certain way that they look at sex offenders, right? And probably I've got probably views that I'm not going to air my views, right? But everybody's got their own views, right? What's it like working? Is there a difference working with sex offenders and then working with like the boys on the wing? Is there a difference?
To me, no. To me, they were just people.
Aye.
And and then my brother had just had a young child, not him personally, obviously, at the time. So I was more protective of, you know, what my brother had, and I didn't want anything to happen to them. So I was conscious, but I could understand why a lot of staff members that had kids that had to work on a wing with sex offenders, they found it hard.
I think some of it's hard. That some of it's like, see, like, to take Ian Huntley for example. I think that man's despicable. Like, I don't think, and it's hard for me because this is where it gets tough, right? Because if you're talking about prison and you want to talk about prison reform and change and all that, you're talking about everybody. This is the thing. This is where it gets hard, and this is where we get complex, because it's all right sitting talking about prison reform, this and that, but if you're talking about prison reform, they're including that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
People forget that it's the whole thing. It's not just sex offenders.
Aye. So sex offenders, but what the government do, and I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, Lisa, is they use sex offenders to bring out things like the tag. They'll date first with them, they date first, like, and honestly, I don't think they'll be far away for like going, look, we're going to chip you if you want to go out. I think that'll come, honestly. But they use them first and then they bring it in, they kind of backdoor it, and then before you know it, it's in the kind of mainstream prison. But me personally, I think I would struggle to work with sex offenders that way. Do you know what I mean? I can't understand it. It's like, if you take like, just take a fight, for example, what you were talking about, you fight, I can understand that, right? I can understand that. My brain ticks over and understand that. But I think actually it's, you should be kind of celebrated for having that compassion and that empathy, that you're able to kind of put that to the side to a certain extent, probably, Lisa. I know it's probably not fully, like, but I mean, I'm
not perfect, Sean, and honestly, there was one sex offender who knew how to milk the system, and I used to have to go down with the catering manager, a female. She was great, she was brilliant. So we had to go to different prisons and find out what they were doing, because I was curious. This was my first time doing this job, so I wanted to learn and help people as much as I could. So we'd go to different prisons and you'd find out what they were doing, what we were doing and everything. And this guy knew how to milk the system. There was one day, he was like Walter Mitty, told so many lies. And we were sitting across from him and he says, you know, Lisa, see if I wasn't in here, you and I would be good friends. And that just broke me. I was like that, no.
Aye.
I'm not being judgy because nobody's perfect, but I thought, I know what you did.
Aye.
And you were very manipulative. He met people on dating sites and targeted them because they had kids.
Aye.
And I thought, that's not for me.
No.
There's an easy mistake that you can make. You can break into somebody's car. You don't know what people are desperate enough to do for money.
Especially when you bring addiction and that in there.
Yeah,
Lisa.
totally.
Aye.
But then what makes you abuse a kid?
That's where I kind of struggle. I struggle with the whole thing, and I get that there's, listen, most sex offenders probably have had some traumatic thing happen to them, and most of them have probably had that the same thing happen to them. The studies that I've read would show that, but I don't know. It was just interesting to see how you thought of, like, is it a different? Because when I went to Castle Huntly, they definitely kind of separate themselves. Do you know what I mean? They know that they're no kind of well liked or whatever, or they're no kind of welcome in certain crowds. So yeah, you didn't speak to them, if you know what I mean. Like you would. Yeah,
you didn't want to be associated with that stuff.
You didn't want to be associated.
I mean, I had like the lifers on another wing. They would see me going in to the sex offenders wing. They're like, "Why are you helping them?" I says, "The reason I'm helping you.
Aye.
They deserve a chance." I didn't always believe what they told me they had said, they had done.
Aye.
And I used to annoy them. I said, "Don't lie to me. Be honest with me."
Aye. No, but I think it's again, it's a hard topic, and it's a topic that needs to be spoke about. Because people, I'm all for prison reform. Do you know what I mean? And I'm all for pushing prison reform, but I probably would struggle to push prison reform on that side. Do you know what I mean?
It is a very hard thing to do. They think they've done nothing wrong. And
it'd be easy to shoot me down and go like that then, really, because like if I'm going, prison, you need to help them, you need to do this and do that. Well, people could easily, and I've had that, people have done it to me and go, what about them then? And I'm like, I don't know, like, do you know what I mean? And it shuts me up because I can't, it's hard for me to do it. I just don't see it. But anyway, that's a whole other thing, right? But so obviously, what was some of the stuff that you seen on there that kind of you remember, Lisa, that stuck with you? Some of the stuff that maybe even successful stuff you might be able to tell us a few stories, horror stories that maybe traumatise you as well. But
just a bit.
What was some of the stuff that you kind of remember that about Addiewell?
The good stuff. I always try to get stuff in that would interest the guys and interest the staff, get their enthusiasm in. See, if you had told me years ago that I would have met Terry Waite, you're probably too young to remember him. I remember growing up watching that on TV when he got kidnapped and everything. And I thought, wow. So I remember when we got him into the prison, and he's just this huge personality, and he's such a lovely, lovely guy. When he was speaking, all these prisoners, you could have heard a pin drop.
Aye.
People that didn't even know who he was, they were like, oh my God.
Aye.
And he came in, and it was just so great. And then other things that we got in, like help the homeless, Street Soccer Scotland, we got them in.
Aye.
What do you have?
I love the street soccer.
They were great.
They were brilliant, excellent. Rab and Andy, they were brilliant. I know, brilliant.
And the really nice guy who passed away, he played for Rangers.
Oh, aye. He was the head guy.
He was one of the coaches.
Aye, he was a lovely guy. I know. I can't remember his name, but aye, he didn't really come in. He was more kind of.
He's on the sidelines, sort of thing.
Aye.
I mean, they were great. We got them in, and just to see prisoners enjoy it, because every guy loves football.
Aye.
We did try to get Tam Cowan in, but he refused us.
I wonder why, I can just imagine him saying no, do you know what I mean?
We got loads of other good people in that spoke. I mean, with the football, like I said, every guy loves football, well, most of them. So we got...
There was a few good players come in, weren't there? Like
Alan Ruff.
Aye.
Barry Ferguson.
Aye.
Frank McAvenny.
Aye. I like We've had Frank McAvenny on here. I've had Frankie on here.
And he's no like the personality you see on Only an Excuse and stuff.
No,
he's a genuine good guy. And so was Alan Ruff.
Aye. Alan Ruff is actually, when I was very young, I went to a party in Alan Ruff's house with his daughter's party.
I remember you telling me that.
And I actually remember I says to him, and he was like, we used the wee guys for come along that we kicked out the house, and I was like, I think that might have been us. But it was actually he was a lovely guy, absolutely lovely guy.
I mean, for them to give up their free time and come into the prison and do that was amazing, and they wanted to help the guys.
Definitely.
And they were like doing stuff for charity and everything like that. Can we donate anything? So they were great.
But I think even see if you were to get these guys a lot of the time, and then you bring in that kind of what we'll talk about, the sex offender thing. It cuts them out as well. Nobody wants to work, and this is where the problem lies. Is how do you? What I would like to see is a prison system that's working and churning out people that are going to be successful and integrating, because Lisa, I can tell you firsthand, integrating back into society is very, very hard.
You'll know better than anybody.
It's extremely hard when you're when you've done 15 years the way I've done. Trying to reintegrate back into society is really hard, and it takes a certain type of family and a certain type of. My partner was my rock through that. Well,
you had a great support network with her.
Lisa, I was just lucky all over with my support network. I was very lucky for day one. Obviously, we been in there for something I've ever done. I had all the support, we all that kind of stuff. So it was, I had all this. I was really, really lucky. But let's be honest, how many guys have got that?
No.
Do you know what I mean? You can count on a few
%.
And see the people that you can count. They're the people that have done well when they go out. Do you know what I mean? It's all the support networks, everything. It's so, so important. If you go back out to a family that's maybe in about addiction, active addiction, or active substance abuse, or active crime, how you, when you're at that vulnerable moment of getting out of prison, you're that vulnerable moment. Where are you going to go? You're going to go where you feel safe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So see if you feel safe in that.
Like I said to you earlier, I'm not perfect. Nobody is. But see, I know myself, if I ended up in prison for doing something that I was wrongly accused of, or even had done it, I don't think I could have survived. I mean, it was hard going being a staff member. At night, sometimes I would just want to come home and not speak to anybody. Because you'd been talking to people all day.
And you're obviously hearing people's problems and hearing families' problems as well, because you worked with families, which would have been hard as well, Lisa. Because obviously the ripple effect of prison's huge, and for victims as well. Do you know what I mean? You've got victims there as well. That the ripple effect, it's a huge ripple effect. It
affected everybody. The victims, the victims' families. The prisoners' families. You've seen that, and that was a big wake up call for me, because I seemed to think that everybody was going to be joining hands singing Kumbaya, and it didn't work like that. So we tried to organise a family fun day, and it was in the gym because of Scottish weather, you know, what the rain's like. And the gym guys, as you know, were absolutely brilliant. So we got an inflatable bouncy castle thing.
Johnny Rulebook.
I don't know who you mean. That was before Johnny Rulebook's days. We Mark and stuff like that. They were just amazing with you guys, and they had a lot of time for you. If you respected them, they respected you.
No, definitely.
So what we did was try to get families in and go into the diversity and inclusion thing. We tried to do that with the Muslim population. We started getting more and more Muslim prisoners in. So what we done was obviously Ramadan, Eid, and we tried to get stuff like that all done. So what we suggested, and I know a lot of people disagree with this, we got the families in at the end of Ramadan for Eid, and they brought in, we had dishes and all the families were there. And prisoners knew that if they'd done something wrong, they wouldn't get to go to that. And because it was a family bonding thing, you know, we had like all the different people from the Muslim community, the imam, they would all come in and they would try to help these guys as much because they just didn't want to understand that why were their boys in the community ending up in prison.
No, definitely. And I think it's the job that you're doing. You're obviously like you're moving with the times as well, and obviously the times that we're going through the now. We had somebody on, we had Scott Forbes on, and we were talking about kind of the hate crime bill and stuff like that, and how dangerous I think that is. You're not allowed an opinion on stuff.
It's becoming a lot more woke. You can't be too woke, and you can't. People are scared to say things now.
Definitely. So I'll ask you another kind of hard question, right? So, like, obviously, trans people, right? And we've got like trans prisoners that are wanting to go to different prisons.
Were you testing the water earlier when you asked me this?
Well, it was just to see like what you make of that, because obviously it's a hard question, right? And I know that you need to kind of probably be careful about it, but my view is, I don't think, me personally, I don't think that you should be allowed to go to a women's prison or a guy. I don't think I should be able to turn up in Addiewell and go, I identify as a female, so I want to go to
I know the rules for that have changed quite dramatically, and it is kind of scary when you see it. If you want to wake up in the morning and say, right, I'm now called Sharon, you know, and it goes towards you. So at the time I was involved, they wanted to send a lot of prisoners to Addiewell because it was like single cells and they had their own ensuite, shall we say. And you can understand for their safety, that's what to do. And I remember going to meetings and I thought, well, where are you going to put these prisoners? We can't put them in the medical wing because they're no ill. Can't put them in the segregation unit because they've not done anything wrong. So I used to go to meetings in Corton Vale, and there were certain people that wanted to come up, and I'm sorry, we used to have a laugh as well when at the prisoners at Christmas, they'd go, oh, are we getting a minibus to Corton Vale? Is that our Christmas night?
You know, I swear, right, if Addiewell first opened, right, that's a true story, right?
I'm scared what's going to come here.
I'm not going to say his name, right, because I like him. But one of the officers, so we were only in, like, I don't know, it was a Christmas, what was the date it opened, remember? It was like 20...
Well, I came a year after it opened.
So it was December, right? It was December it opened. So we were there for like the 15th or something, 15th of December or whatever, right? So we says to this officer, going to go and, what's happening with the Corton Vale disco? And he's like, what's that? And he says, every year we get to go to Corton Vale and that, and you get to hang. So this guy was running about the wing, taking names for the Corton Vale disco, right? I know. But he went out to the manager and obviously came back in and he was like, boys, I fucking just get my arse kicked there and I can't believe he's done that and all that. And we were like, I can't believe you fucking believed it.
I did when the prisoners told me. I was getting to go to, well, they didn't say Corton Vale, they called it something different. I was like, do they? And I went into one of the seniors. I goes, did they go? He went, no, you muppet. He goes, what made you think that? Because like I said, I was new to that job and I was quite gullible and I believed what they said. I thought they must.
Aye. No, but it's like when you're in these places, there's a different language in prison. There's a different ethos. There's a different moral value system that you really need to come down to a level or go up to a level that you've never been to before. Do you know what I mean? You need to.
If you've never been in that environment, you don't know until you've been there. You might watch programs on the TV and stuff. Like a lot of people know what I used to do in the prison, and they ask me, "Were you scared?" Did you ever feel that you were going to be attacked or raped? No, I didn't. The staff members looked after you. They were great. They knew if you came on the wing. I mean, you don't know what they're going through, as in staff had to leave their problems at the door and then come in and deal with prisoners' problems. And that was hard for them as well.
Definitely. And I think I've said it loads of times. Staff, like if you look at the statistics with staff members, I've got a very low life expectancy. And I think that's because of the vicarious trauma that they get. I think staff members...
You try to say I'm going to kick the bucket soon?
No, like I think, see more guys on the wing that have to kind of... Let's be honest, like you need to change. You need to change fast, or you. And I think that's why Addiewell and places like Berlin and all these places have got such a high. How many people are off sick? Do you know what I mean? There's a third of the staff,
especially with the blue flu.
That's it. Do you know what I mean? Like a third of the staff off sick with depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
And no wonder. Do you know what I mean? But this is where you go like that to yourself. How's this helping anybody? This is where it gets you're traumatising the staff and you're traumatising the prison population. But how do you heal that, Lisa? This is the problem, right?
We've not got a magic wand.
No, but see what I think. See what you were talking about: compassion, empathy, stuff like that, right? You're going to always get prisoners, as you say. You're always going to get prisoners who want to be prisoners, who don't want to go along with whatever. But the vast majority of guys in there want to change. The vast majority of guys would like to have a normal, peaceful life where they could put their head down at night, or they could look over they don't need to look over their shoulder every 2 minutes. They don't want to be living in that hyper-vigilant state. So you must have seen some people in there where you seen like people healing. It didn't happen a lot. I must admit, the only times I've seen it, Lisa, was if somebody maybe had a religious awakening or a spiritual awakening, or maybe if somebody come off drugs and they get a bit of clarity about themselves. But it was all I'm going to be brutally honest with you here. I think.
Imagine that.
No, I'm brutally honest with you. See the courses that they do, they're rubbish. They don't help anybody. Don't
mince your words.
No, but I don't think they help anybody, Lisa. And I think they could be done so much better. I think, the
intention was there, but I don't think sometimes it followed through. It was like a tick box.
Yes, and I think if you're on a course and you know that the guy's talking crap to you and you're talking crap to him, right, and they're all talking crap
saying
to
what
each
he
other,
wants
right?
to hear.
Aye, right, because you sit on these courses and you get told what to say before you go. Like, this is how my report and all that. So I don't see that as helping people, right? I just see it as a kind of, as you say, as a tick box exercise. But it's very hard. It's extremely hard to navigate that volatile environment. Do you know what I mean? And how do you do it? How do you? This is the questions that arise for these kind of podcasts. Is how do we make a better job of it? How do we make it a better system? Chris Daw, right? We had Chris Daw, a KC on for England. He said just rip it up and start again. And do you know what? I've got to agree with him, Lisa.
I think some of it isn't working. Some of it does. And I do believe in rehabilitation for a lot of people, not for everybody, because not everybody wants to be rehabilitated.
Aye.
You know, and you'd see guys that wanted to do it and wanted to get out and make a better life for themselves. There was other ones that thought, I'm just going to stay in this system. I'm getting 3 square meals a day.
Aye. And what I always say is how sad is it? What is their existence outside that's the best option for them? Do you know what I mean?
Because you knew at Christmas you were going to get a whole load of people coming in because they wanted to be with their pals at Christmas time back in the prison, because that's the only family that they know.
I know. And you would get a lot of kind of older guys coming in off the street, homeless guys, just to get a meal and stuff, which is, again, it's really sad to see, but it's hard to kind of, when you get people on, we've had like Donna Simpson on, we've had Karen McCluskey on, we've had a lot of people that all amazing people, do you know what I mean, that really look at change and really want positive change. But when you ask the question, you put the question, how do we do it? it is massive changes it's needed. It's radical changes. And what do you think it is that's holding it back?
I don't think maybe there's enough, how can I say this? I always feel they've got people that make these decisions that have never been in a prison environment. I think they should obviously ask a lot of prisoners' opinions. And people mock that and go, what? But you have been there, you've lived that life, you would know what's going to work and what's not going to work. And staff should have an opinion as well and try and get something on the right track where everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet.
And this is one of the other things that comes up quite a lot as well, is that us and them thing, right? So there's an us and them mentality. How do you get rid of that? Because, and listen, I know it's a near impossible question, but how do you get rid of, how do you build trust that I would be able to come up to you, Lisa, and go, Lisa, I'm fucked with drugs, like I'm really in a bad place. And maybe, Lisa, you could have been one of the people that would have went, do you know what, I'm not going to go and say and maybe try and help you round about, go and maybe try and contact family members, whatever.
I did try to do that, I mean? And sometimes it bit you on the backside.
This is what
because
I mean.
I was quite gullible. I'd go, I believe what he says.
Aye.
And it just didn't always work like that. But I do think everybody's got to be involved in seeing how we're going to go forward.
Aye.
And I'm not an expert, not saying I'm an expert, but I wanted to help people in there.
No, and I've got no doubt that you were definitely there for the right reasons. But my gripes with the system, my gripes with how do you, again, I'll go back to the kind of slogan, transforming lives for the better, right? We've got a massive reoffending rate. We've got a massive addiction problems in prison. We've got massive trauma problems. The prisons are getting a lot more violent.
A lot busier.
A lot busier. We're opening up a brand new prison. We do have the chance here to maybe open something special. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I hope Mick Stoney's involved in it to the extent that you kind of hear whispers. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I think that they could open this HMP Glasgow and it's going to just fire the numbers up another 1,000.
Because all they keep harping on about is, HMP Corton Vale and Barlinnie's not fit for purpose. That's why the inspectorate come in and everything like that. And when the inspectorate came in, you'd get certain people that want to speak to them.
Aye.
And then people were told what to say.
I know.
And because I was diversity and inclusion advisor, I had to sit with them and got grilled. What are you doing for foreign national prisoners? What are you doing for Eid? What are you doing for Ramadan? What are you doing for the Catholics? And I remember one prisoner on your wing, he said to me, see, if I was in his country, I would have been locked in and thrown away the key. He says, but here's you, making sure what he wants for his dinner and make sure it's culturally correct. He says, what's the point of that? They're in our country and I'm trying to explain to him, we're trying to treat everybody equally and fairly.
No, it's a hard thing. Listen, it's a hard job, man, and you probably done it to the best of your ability, and you done, because obviously we were laughing about obviously the kind of everybody turned Jewish because of the meals. The meals were better. Do you know what I mean? And,
I remember watching Orange is the New Black because I loved that programme, and I was saying to my boyfriend at the time, that's going to happen in Addiewell. He goes, don't be so stupid, David. I swear to God. And it was a couple of months later, again, someone else in your wing, I want to be Jewish. And I thought, and once he started the ball rolling, everybody jumped on that bandwagon.
Oh, no. And it was, well, what I hear, it was like 20 quid a meal or something, and it was costing a lot of money. But I think a lot of people just done it again but this is where...
Piss the system off?
Aye, to piss the system off, right?
Or piss me off.
Aye. But I think...
I'd have to go to the kitchen and go, that's another 20 people for fourth whatever. What?
No, they were microwave. They were actually really good meals, actually. I actually got a few of them. But
good for you.
They were actually all right.
But the thing was, I think they took like more than 7 minutes in the microwave.
Aye.
And I said, we're going to have to get more microwaves on. And then the Muslim community were getting peed off because certain people were making bacon rolls in their...
Aye. And
I just didn't care. I mean, some of it I can sit and laugh about how serious it was. But then you got half of these people that weren't taking their religion seriously, like during where they had to fast. They were getting caught eating Kit Kats in the shower.
I remember getting a few guys rolls and sausages and that, do you know what I mean, when they were on their fasting and that, do you know what I mean, go and get their own sausage, Sean, and all that, and you would go down and get rolls and sausages. But I think like the main kind of theme that runs through when I try and do these podcasts when it's prison related is, what would you like to see brought in, Lisa? What do you think could make a change? Because obviously we've got this trauma-informed stuff going about. To me, it's just a buzzword. People don't understand trauma, I don't think, and they're going in kind of blind, if that makes sense. So what did you see working? What did you see working that you would like to have seen more of?
More support for the guys. I mean, some of the things, I know it was silly little baby steps, but I thought it helped a lot of people. And this is how stupid and naive I was, because I remember saying to the prisoner, "Did you not read that in reception?" And he goes, "I can't read or write." And I just assumed, being for the background that I was brought up in, that everybody knew how to read and write.
Aye.
And there was a thing in the Daily Record, it was kit for kids. Now, I didn't know that kit meant heroin.
Aye.
And I was trying to collect tokens for all these kids to get football strips.
Aye.
I remember saying to this guy, "Do you get the Daily Record?" He goes, "I can't read." You know, and that was a wake-up call for me.
Aye.
And it made me realise not everybody's as privileged to learn how to read and write.
Not in the prison system operates hugely on. I mean, like I used to do peer mentoring stuff up at education. Like Julie Thompson was there. Julie was absolutely amazing.
She helped a lot of you guys.
She did. And listen, I done a degree and all that, and I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for Julie. Do you know what I mean? Julie gave you that kind of belief that you can do that.
She gave a lot of guys belief like that.
Well, I mean, there was 4 or 5 years that went on to higher education, and
there was people that mocked her. What? You're going to do that?
I know, and she proved them wrong in the end, didn't she?
Yeah.
Like, she did prove them wrong, and big shout out to Julie. But I think that some of the classes I was at, honestly, Lisa, it was like 2 cats are here, and then like 1 cat runs away. How many cats are left?
I've got to think
and
about
things
that.
like that. I know, not very good to that. But that was the type of, and it used to, I used to get really kind of affected by that. I used to get affected by, this guy really has got he's got no literacy or numeracy skills here. And how are you supposed to navigate a prison system when you can't do that?
Do you remember the advert, which was on forever, about, "Dad, will you come and read with me?" And you see the dad looking all nervous.
Aye.
And because he couldn't say to his kids that he couldn't read or anything like that. And people forget that happens. And it does. I mean, my sister-in-law is a head teacher, and she's great. And she got me into her school once to talk about, this was ages ago, it was primary school kids and what it's like working in a prison. And I'm standing there and I'm speaking about diversity and inclusion and how you treat everybody equally and fairly. And I was trying to make it nice for the kids, because it was primary 6, primary 7s, and this wee boy put his hand up. He says, "Do you have animals in there?" I says, "Yeah, there's drug dogs and stuff like that." He goes, "My dad likes dogs," and he says that he always gets to spend time with the drug dogs. And I didn't realise this little boy's dad was in prison.
Aye.
And then when I realised who the little boy was, you know, I'm not often speechless, but I was totally speechless because I knew who his dad was, and his dad seemed like a nice guy. But what he'd done to his kids and his family and his wife was just awful. But that was out of my control.
Aye. And I think that probably would have happened a lot with you, because obviously you'll have seen people's backgrounds and stuff like that, and maybe people that say there's something or they're in for something that they're and then they're no, do you know what I mean? They're in for something else. And that's again where the level of trust, right? So if I was to come to you, just take it for the, so say we were in prison, say it was 2008 or whatever, Lisa, right? And I came to you and I said, "Lisa, I'm fucked with drugs, man. Like, I really need help." What would your steps have been?
Now or then?
Probably then.
Then I would have tried, thought I could help everybody. I'd have tried to help you. I wouldn't have ran and got you into trouble or anything.
Aye.
I mean, I used to be having conversations with prisoners, and I can multitask.
Aye.
And you'd hear prisoners talk about how they were on the phone to their mother that night in the cell and everything. You know, and you think...
Aye, you would hear that, and you would hear like...
Do I ignore it?
Aye.
Do I tell intelligence? I mean, you just didn't want to...
No. I think you need to build up this trust, and this is where I was going to get to. It was that trust thing where I would never have felt comfortable, and I don't think anybody would feel comfortable going up to an officer and saying, listen.
It's because they've got a uniform on.
And they've got a duty. They've got a duty a duty of care, right? But their duty of care expands into a kind of duty to basically keep you there as a prisoner. And it's not, the word's no punishment. The word that I'm looking for, it's more like if I was to go up to an officer and say, I'm fucked with drugs, blah, 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 he needs to go and tell security or needs to go and say, look, Sean's. So then I'm getting punished. So it's
a conflict.
Why would you ever admit to it? Why would you ever admit? So you get taught through that kind of way that, and people that are the older generation tell them fuck all.
Yeah, that's old school sort of thing. See, when I told people that I was coming to do this, now the reason I'm doing this is because a friend of mine, her daughter,
Aye.
And I couldn't believe that day I was having lunch with her and she says, that she was sitting doing this podcast with you. And I've always thought you were a good guy. People, you were no angel in there, let's face it.
Aye, no, I know.
Neither were half the staff though, I'm going to put that out there. But people were trying to help you and try to lead you down the right way. Sometimes you didn't want help.
Aye.
But other times you did. And
Aye.
People should realise that not everybody's perfect. No staff member, no person, no manager. We've all got like a guilty, just that one pleasure that maybe pushes you over the edge.
No, but obviously my problem in prison, I was in for something I've never done, Lisa, right? And I was like, I was under a lot of pressure for just life in prison, right? And I was trying to do a degree and then I got introduced to like Valium and stuff like that, and that was a big problem at the time. And I'm just glad that I never got involved with spice and all that. But Valium at the time, I didn't know, and now I know how they work. And but what they do is they shut your nervous system down. They take you they give you that kind of take that hypervigilant state away from you. They take that state of anxiousness away from you.
But
so
when you're in prison, I suppose you would take anything, hooch, everything like that.
Definitely drank a hooch a couple of times. Do you know what I mean? A couple of times it never worked, and it was like vinegar. Do you know what I mean? But I know it's still there. And but this is, I think the whole thing is when you're in prison, most of the time you're looking for an escape, right? And it's very hard to turn to anybody because you can't turn to your peers in prison and go, I'm feeling weak. I'm feeling really down. I'm feeling depressed. Because it comes across as a weakness. And you know yourself.
And you didn't want to show a weakness.
You show a weakness in prison, people jump on it.
It was like people say to me, there was a lot of programmes made, and there was one called Screw, and there was another programme called Time with Sean Bean.
Aye.
And I thought that was
Time was really good. I was actually really close to how things worked. Aye.
And I remember speaking with Jim, the Rev, and we spoke about that. I said, it's so true to life. And I would see, like, if we had an event and we had like a buffet, yes, we did do nice buffets for prisoners, much to people's disgust. They should have been fed bread and water. But would you want somebody that was fed bread and water and batter from one end to the prison to another to come live next door to you when they get out?
But do you know Johnny Steele was telling us? So
is it Johnny Rulebook?
Nah, Johnny Rulebook probably would tell you this and all anyway. But Johnny Steele was saying that back in the day, that one of that was a punishment, bread and water. So that was like you were a week, you would go into the other room and they'd give you like a week bread and water. And
you can't do that now because of human rights.
Of course, and a lot of people go, oh, human rights, and this is where it gets tainted again, because people go human rights and then people automatically boost to like Ian Huntley. Oh look, and you're like, this is where it's like you're fucking like you're fucking up because you're making society look at the worst person and go, this is who you're giving human rights to. Do you know what I mean? So it puts society off.
You can't
Society
pick and
don't
choose,
see-
though. You
No,
can't
you
go,
can't.
he deserves human rights. He doesn't, neither does he.
But you're probably talking 99% of the prison population are the Anian Huntley. Do you know what I mean?
No.
99.9% of it are the Anian Huntley. So you've got to overlook, right, okay, he's going to get certain rights, but what you're doing is you're creating a system that's going to stop future victims. That if you're going to create a system that it's going to make people come out. It's like Norway. Norway's society, the society they've got, Lisa, is they believe that people that go into prison are broken and that they can be fixed.
Yeah.
Over here, a lot of people have got that fuck them attitude, right? And Chris McPherson was on not that long ago and he put it a great way. He said that people are actually obsessed with crime, but right, to the extent where, see if people have got a gangster pal,
It's like kudos.
Aye, they want to show off about it. I know this guy and this guy, do you know? And then on the next breath, but they want prisoners to get nothing. And
Again, you can't pick and choose.
you know, you can't pick and choose. And again, it's like,
what if they murdered your sister, your brother, your mum or your dad? Then you would have a whole different opinion of them.
definitely. And you're talking, sometimes we are talking about guys who have been involved in serious stuff and people want to show off that this is their pal and that's their pal and I know
Are they
this
their
guy.
pal, though?
I know this guy and I know that guy. And like, well, obviously you've been in Addiewell, you know some of the big characters that were there and sometimes these big characters are better on the wing. This is what I try and tell people as well. Sometimes when I remember staff members with certain people, they would want them on the wing because the wing would be quiet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But why you could bring one other person in and it disrupts the whole hall.
Yeah.
And
It's like dealing with children sometimes. You know, when you see them coming into reception, they'd go, have you got any enemies? Well, Joe Bloggs is my enemy. He stole my scooter when I was 3. They just never forget about stuff like that. I mean, I can hold a grudge, but come on.
No, I know some of the grudges that go in prison are mad, but it's hard to look at the how you, because I always say, right, see if you imagine you got a system that was working and stuff like that, you're always going to get people that have got big personalities that are able to push and say that's a lot of shite and be able to break it. Do you know what I mean? How this is a question that I've asked to a few people as well. How would you, like, take Eddie Gorman? Eddie Gorman said that he needed...
guy.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But Eddie spoke about how he had to shatter his ego before he could move on, right? How do you shatter somebody's ego when they've got that huge ego? How would you go about doing it, Lisa? I mean, it's an impossible question again. It's just in case you've maybe got an
solution?
idea. An idea that you can...
I mean, there was, as you know, a big character personality in Addiewell, and I got on fine and great with him. But I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, especially when he was kidding and he was Jewish all the time.
Aye.
You know, but there is people that you build a rapport with, and I used to get told you're too trusting, and I do know that I'm too trusting sometimes, especially my track record with dodgy boyfriends. But when I first became diversity and inclusion, my line manager, I got on great with her.
Aye.
And then when I became the job role and she was my manager, sometimes I felt she didn't take me serious enough and she felt like I didn't know what I was talking about. Sometimes I didn't, I'm going to be honest. But sometimes I felt like I knew more than her. But she changed my outlook on how I should look at prisoners. She goes, they're not all your pals. And she also made me aware that no, the so-called pals I thought I had in the prison were my pals.
Aye, on both sides. So, like, you've got staff members who would stab you in the back, and
Totally.
It's a volatile. That's what I'm saying. It's a volatile environment.
You want to trust people, but I mean, if your life depends on that, who are you going to put that in? And I used to say that. Say I was on a wing, and I shouldn't have been on the wing, and I started getting attacked. If I've got somebody that's severely overweight running from wing 4 to wing 3. And by the time they get there, they're like, give me 10 minutes.
Aye.
And I'm getting hurt or raped or...
Aye, whatever. Aye, no, and listen, I understand that. And this is where you've got to say, is it actually, how can we say this system's working? How can we say that this system's, the system that's going to ultimately change the prison population into people who we can then bring into society and reintegrate successfully. Do you know what I mean? It's we know how hard it is to do that, especially in this day and age where poverty's rising, the cost of living's rising.
And it's going to get worse.
I know. It is going to get worse.
You know, the whole food bank thing, people are embarrassed to admit they go to food banks.
Aye.
I'm not a religious person. Sorry, Jim. The Rev will be like... But I loved going to hear what he had to say to prisoners. And he turned a lot of prisoners' lives around, you know, with religion. Some of them just went there because there wasn't a camera in there and they could pass stuff. But then he done so much great work with good guys. And some of the guys are even better. I meet them out in the community and they're like, thanks very much for helping me. Some of them probably walk the other way when they see me. But you've got people like that that'll be helped and want to help. And then there's other people that are just in there for what they can get.
No, I agree with you. But I think that if we're going to try and build a system, Lisa, right? Obviously, you were part of probably a kind of new project with Addiewell, right? Addiewell was probably a kind of new project, and where it was like an educational prison. It was this and that, and it was probably an experiment.
Did you enjoy the education side of it?
Me personally, aye.
Because you gained something from it. I
gained something for it, right? But I was a very small minority.
I know you were.
So...
I mean, I used to feel sorry for the guy that ran the computer class.
Aye.
Lovely, genuine guy. And people just took the utter...
It was really nice. And listen, I'd done my Windows passport and all that kind of stuff. So I'd done it was actually really good if you let him teach. But I was always interested. I always wanted to learn. So I was kind of different. I was able to kind of use Addiewell to my thing. But if you were to take the full population of Addiewell and then look at how many people were attending education for the correct reasons, it's very small.
Yeah.
So is that a successful system? No, to me it isn't. And I keep saying this with even the top end of Berlin. I was saying to Donna Simpson when Donna was on, you've got a system there that ultimately you're getting like 1 in 10 through it. That's in any other job you're getting sacked. If that's your success rate, they're saying to you, look, scrap that. That's no working. Let's start again. And it's as if the prison system don't want to admit that they've got some stuff wrong. Where I think it's
comment.
No, and that's totally you're able to do that, Lisa, because obviously you're in a position. But I think that me personally, I think it's a strength for you to say this is broke now. And we need to fix it.
I think a lot of managers in there do know stuff's broken and needs to be repaired. And there is people that want to try and do it. I mean, I thought I would go in and had a magic wand and I'd be able to help people. I'd be like Mary Poppins. It doesn't work like that.
No. And listen, I've caught managers, I've caught governors, I've caught loads of people on their own, and they'll say, Sean, listen, and you're right, it's broke. We need to try and fix it. How do we do it? Me personally, right, I think I got a small enough prison population where we could individualise everybody's kind of settings in the way that if you were to come in, just say you went to Addiewell and it was like one of the jails that you just come into at the start, what do you call that, like Douglas say, the induction wing, right? Wing. You go in, that's an induction prison, right? And you find out, individualise, get a talk, what do you like, blah, blah, spend 3-4 months with them, get to find out what they actually like, what's their passion in life, right? You like that, you're going to go to shots because up in shots they do a lot of that's sort of joinery up there. You learn how to do this. If you like mechanics, you're going to go to Glenorchy. If you like education, you're going to stay here in Addiewell. We have got and if you want to be Billy the Kid and you want to jump about, then you're going to go there. Do you know what I mean? Like you're going to go to that prison.
I totally agree with you.
Don, you go, Lisa, sorry.
No, I totally agree with you there. I mean, there was loads of people that were in Addiewell that didn't want to be there. They didn't learn at school. I was one of them. Couldn't be bothered. And but then there's other people that wanted to, like yourself, wanted to get a degree and work towards something like that, wanted to better themselves. And then there was other people that just wanted to sit behind their door and just get out their face.
I know. No, and see, this is where I think that you've got to, that empathetic side and the compassionate side comes out, because what I remember staff sometimes saying to me, "What you walking about mad with for rubbing it in her face, right?" And I'm like, well, he's no like, how's he rubbing it in your face? Like he's mad with it because he doesn't want to be here. It's an escape. It's
staff
escapism.
didn't see that at the point.
That's what I mean. So staff are conditioned as well to see a certain way, right? That's where we need to change. We need a healing process at that point. We need,
like I said to you, we're not all going to come together and sing Kumbaya. It'd be great in perspective, yeah. It'd be brilliant if that was going to happen. Like Audrey was a big advocate for conjugal rights. And I remember saying to one of the officers, he went, "I'm going to be like a bordello owner, standing on right number 7, your time's up, you know." But then you look at Norway and it releases tension, so to speak, and you know, it encourages family bonding.
And your reoffending rates in these countries are so small compared to kind of Scotland.
But would you say that somebody from Norway is brought up with the same way as somebody from Tweet Postal?
No, I think Norway's got a totally different society, and this is where we need to change. It's societal views that we need to change. It's the views that, unfortunately, the media, like your Daily Record and your News of the Worlds and these kind of papers, have portrayed the Radisson.
Do you know the News of the World doesn't exist anymore, Sean?
Aye, well, I know. Thank God it doesn't exist. But these people at the Radisson Hotel look at the Christmas menu. You know, I mean, Lisa, the Christmas dinners were all right. They were all right for like.
I didn't work Christmas Day, sorry.
But no, they were just like a bit of kind of cold meat turkey. Do you know what I mean? Nice bit of turkey for cold meat, but it wasn't anything special. But the way they would portray it in the paper, it looked as if, because obviously in the menu it would say, "Oh, turkey with trimmings and all that." But it wasn't. It was like, it was nothing great. Do you know what I mean? And they've done this quite a lot.
I can see that, and you can see why the media get annoyed. I remember when I first went to Addiewell, Audrey encouraged us to go out into the community and build bridges with the community. So we went to like the heart of the community in Addiewell, which was like it was like a gym, a cafe and everything. So there. And this woman, she was sitting across from me. Thank God she likes me now. And she says to me, "How can you sit here?" Because Addiewell was like a mining town, a mining village thing. And she says, "We have got old people that can barely afford to heat their houses. Yeah, in Addiewell, I mean, I'm just in the door at Addiewell here. You've got a swimming pool. To this day, I've never found a swimming pool in Addiewell." You know, we things, because the media built it up.
I know.
And all these things they believed, and because they thought, so we had said, "No, wait a minute. What we'll try and do," that's me and a guy called Douglas, try to make everybody play nice. Says, "Right, I was standing, I was looking out the window, and there was an old couple at a bus stop, and it was raining, and there was nowhere for them to shelter or sit down." And I said, "How come I can go back to the craft class and say they could make benches to sit in that area and say, you know, right, okay." And we put stuff on the benches, made in HMP Addiewell, kindly donated to the community. They'll get burnt. She was just shooting us down in flames. Well, they didn't. We started building benches for there. The guys built planters. We put plants in them, made the community look better. So Addiewell started getting that. Then the other communities wanted that. And then they started seeing Addiewell Prison as for something good. It might have been a tiny wee thing, but it was something good.
No, and I think that's see more of that, Lisa, see more of that awareness, raising people's awareness, showing people that the prisoners aren't all bad people. Most prisoners are just people who are lost on their journey, whether it be through addiction, whether it be a traumatic event of just not being able to process, whatever their story is. 9 times out of 10, there'll be a background story to that.
There always is.
So it's trying to get people to understand that, and this is where our media does not help us. Our media is really...
We still call prisoners cons.
Aye, cons.
You know, everything like that, screws. And I used to crack down on people. I'd be like, "Don't say that, you know, they are human."
Aye.
And I remember when I first done the training, I used to have 4 flip charts up in each corner of the room, and I'd go, right, on one it'd say prisoners, on the other one it'd be prison officers, and then something else, prisons. And I'd go, right, go round, break up into groups and go round and think as many words that you can put on this flip chart of words for prisoners, you know, cons, everything like that. And then you'd go, do you feel all right saying that to you? How do you feel getting called a screw? Well, I don't like it. Well, how do you think they feel getting called a con? Then I got told I was too namby-pamby, I was too touchy-feely.
No, see, I agree with what you're doing, and what I would go a step further. I would go a step further, and I would actually bring prisoners and officers together to do a group like that. And this is where I get shot down, because I tried to do that in Low Moss, and they were like, it won't happen. And I says, look, I'm not saying that you're going to get your hardcore prisoners coming up and sitting with officers and all that. What I'm trying to say is, what you need to do is you need to show prisoners that some of these officers have got the same background story as you, and
they've just had a better opportunity.
They're channeling their whatever that way. And if you can get to start understanding that, if you can get an understanding of why people are like the way they are, it gives you a starting point. It gives you something to work for. I
know, and that's what I try to put through to people. I mean, like, I'm not in the prison service anymore, but I'll still get my family to go, see, you're in the paper today, the Mean Addiewell.
Aye.
You know, and I still defend Addiewell because I had some great times there and I met some great people, prisoners and staff.
Aye.
And I'm not going to lie about it. But then there was also some people that just didn't want to see the prison move forward.
No, and I think I don't know. I've got a different take on Addiewell, Lisa. I met some great people in it, the same as yourself. I met some great friends for it. I absolutely hated the place, and with the environment, the toxic environment. I despised the way it was a money making system for a company. Do you know what I mean? So there definitely is things that I don't like. That doesn't mean that there wasn't a lot of people that I met in Addiewell that I really liked. Do you know what I mean? But the system, I think, is broke, and I think the stats speak for themselves. I don't think you need to even. Obviously, you can't really speak about a lot of things because of the position you were in. But I think that just looking at it for the statistical point and the stats, they speak for themselves in the way that. Is it working? And I mean this for every system, by the way. Is it working? No. Do you know what I mean?
Buckfast's got a lot to answer for.
Buckfast, and definitely drink is. I mean, I don't know, like 60-70% of people in the jail were in jail for under the influence of alcohol at the time. Do you know what I mean?
They were. I told you that earlier.
You know, it's true. It's one of these things where I think if
the tonic wine's got a lot to answer for.
You'd probably go if you would add drugs in there, you're probably looking at 90% of people in there.
I grew up with a guy from when I was 2 or 3 years old. Right, grew up with them. He booted my backside once or twice. I always wanted to hang about with him. Then it turned out he ended up in Addiewell prison.
Aye.
And for me to see him behind bars, it was quite hard. Like a guy that I spoke about earlier, he was like absolutely so handsome.
Aye.
And then I remember going to the gym one day and I was standing speaking to one of the guys and looked through the window and here's this guy that we all used to fancy growing up on the treadmill.
Aye.
And I couldn't believe what he was in for.
Aye.
And then he denied it. And then years later, you saw what he was in for come out into the press.
Aye.
And you think you've got to try and give people an opportunity. People lie. We're all human. We all do it.
Definitely. And I think the prison system, you as a prison officer, you're going to try, certain prison officers anyway, not all of them, certain prison officers, maybe security prison officers and all that, I don't know. They'll probably be wanting information and stuff, Lisa. That's the way they work. Do you know what I mean? And they'll probably get that kind of stuff. And it's something that I was never involved in. I just never ever, I never ever went to staff really for much. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't my thing, Lisa. I just never really was involved. I probably bottled a lot up. Do you know what I mean? Which didn't help because it made me turn to drugs. Do you know what I mean? So
well, you weren't alone in there. Half the staff as well, I could say.
Probably. I mean, obviously, I don't know if you'll answer. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but like. On staff, probably a lot of staff members take drugs the same way as any normal workplace.
How would a prisoner deal with trauma?
Yes.
And as a coping strategy, not just for staff, but for prisoners, for everybody.
And you probably see a lot of staff members, because I've seen it, that have got drink problems, and they drink maybe every night to hide that kind of thing. And if you're a functioning, that's sometimes worse when you're a functioning addict. When you're a functioning addict, it's sometimes worse because you don't actually see the problem. Do you know what I mean? And that's a big problem in Scotland. Function addiction.
I think it's where we were, how we were brought up in Scotland. You know, drink. That's it. Like the characters, like
culture.
Ramsay Nesbitt and stuff like that. You know, it's encouraged and everything. And people think you're a big hard man if you can drink so many pints.
Aye. Oh, it's seen as a status thing, isn't it? It's like a kind of a status. But as we're kind of coming up to the end of the podcast, Lisa, right, I'm going to kind of just try and go into, so some of the stuff, what's the kind of most memorable things that you can remember? What's kind of some of the success stories that you've seen, like some of the stuff that puts a smile on your face, that you were able to see for Addiewell Prison? Like
the family fun day, you'd see these guys that were hardened criminals and had this persona that they had to portray there with their kids and their wife, and they were like totally different people, and it was just so good, and they'd come up and thank you for it.
Aye.
Some people didn't think they deserved that, but their kids didn't do anything wrong.
No. And family members. And there's any other kind of outstanding moments that you kind of remember that you go, that'll probably stick with you for the rest of your life, that you maybe didn't want to see?
There's too many to mention.
Aye.
But there's too many good things to mention as well.
I know. Would you say, if I was to ask you, do you think you've got a bit of trauma for the prison? Do you think?
My anxiety's through the roof.
Aye. Do you think?
Even though my mum will say to me, give yourself a shake. She's for the generation where she doesn't believe in mental health problems and that. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I know. No, I know. Give yourself a shake and you'll be fine.
Just get on with it. Get back to your work.
But no, it's interesting because I believe that all prisoners that do at any kind of length of time, and I think
how is that not going to affect them mentally?
I think it's got to affect you, either like anxiety, depression. You're going to be faced with addiction. You're going to be faced with one of these at some point. I think if you
and as soon as people hear you've been in prison, that's it. They've judged you already before you've opened your mouth.
No, definitely. And I think, so what I'll do, Lisa, I'll give you the kind of, I always give the guest the kind of final message, right? So see for like somebody out there, maybe that's struggling with mental health, struggling with addiction, just a wee message for somebody that can be done. There's a positive outcome.
Don't bottle it up. Speak to people. There's so much and so many groups out there, like Andy's Man Club and stuff like that. I used to try and get these people into the prison, like real live people, and speak to the prisoner to hit home. But yeah, speak to somebody. Sam H, don't bottle it up. The worst you bottle it up, it'll just eat away at your soul.
Definitely, and we've seen it time and time again with the reoffending and the people, that kind of revolving circle. But Lisa, thank you for coming on and your honesty, and it's been great having you on, and thank you very much. It's been brilliant having you. Thank you.
Right.
Cheers.